Today we'll be recapping the Hildebrand quests in A Realm Reborn, Heavensward, and Stormblood.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Eorzean Archons. I'm FaZe.
And I'm Catherine.
This video is a high-level summary. For more detailed summaries, go to the links in the description below.
There will be no spoilers in this video after the Stormblood expansion.
Remember to subscribe and click the bell icon if you'd like to be notified of future videos.
Let's get started.
We've been on so many adventures with Hildebrand now. How do we even begin to retell his story?
Perhaps with the Manderville man himself? Before the Calamity, Hildebrand and his assistant Nashu supposedly were good at finding trouble, but not necessarily solving it.
He wasn't the brightest either, and somehow got it in his head that he was the hero of prophecy, meant to prevent the 7th Umbral Calamity, but instead accidentally shot himself at Dalamud and died.
Oddly enough, his body was able to be recovered in good condition, and he was given a proper burial.
In typical Hildebrand luck, that wouldn't be the end of his story when we find him. This time, he's off on another adventure. The adventure begins at Hildebrand's grave as we meet his assistant Nashu and offer to help her with a mysterious new case involving zombies. We run off and slay some zombies, but something is oddly gentlemanly about them. We find a note that leads us to a new location where we find zombie Hildebrand as we are surrounded by the gentle dead men. Hildebrand has lost his memories and thinks he's a zombie now, so Nashu wakes him up with bombs.
With his memory somehow restored, Hildebrand senses a new case in Ul'dah and rushes off. This new case involves a thieving duelist, and a lady in the area recently had an encounter with them. The victim's name is Yellow Moon, and her priceless wand accessory was stolen. Together with Hildebrand, we retrace her steps and notice some suspicious crates everywhere we go. Nashu gives us some explosives to open the crates, revealing yellow-hooded men hiding within, and the Pure Heart wand is with them. With all eyes on the hooded men, they come clean and try to explain how they're basically a cult of admirers for Yellow Moon.
These admirers can't be the thieving duelist we're looking for, and the woman overhearing us confirms our suspicions. Her name is Ellie, and she's a reporter for the Mithril Eye. Ellie tells us that Humphrey is an actual victim of the thieving duelist, so we head out and talk to him. We quickly realize, though, that he lied to us about his past and also lost Old Man Eleazar's sword to the duelist. We end up searching in a nearby spring for the sword, but only find one that looks similar to it.
When we arrive back in the village, Hildebrand passes off the look-alike blade to the old man, who accepts the fake happily. From outside, a calling card flies in and strikes Hildebrand in the forehead. It reads, "I shall come to claim the collector's blade. Challenge accepted."
Ellie suspects that the collector's blade is the Treaty Blade, part of an Ishgardian noble's collection. We head out to speak with the collector, who is a woman named Durilda. Hildebrand offers his services to protect the sword, but she won't accept, for she has already hired her own inspector. Speaking of, in walks Inspector Briarden. Hildebrand and Briarden don't hit it off well, each thinking nothing of the other's skill. As Briarden takes his leave, Maria enters, informing Durilda that she lost her expensive vase.
To prove ourselves, we offer to help Maria find the lost vase. We follow her out to a stream where we find a broken vase by Gilgamesh and a painted green chicken named Enkidu. It would seem Greg here accidentally stepped on the vase. Have no fear though, Hildebrand knows someone who may be able to help repair the vase. We head out to look for this goldsmith of legend, and after some Manderville dances, Godbert, Hildebrand's father, appears. He's upset his son didn't tell him he was actually alive and chases him to teach him a lesson. With those shenanigans out of the way, Godbert repairs the vase but goes a little too far in the process. We explain to Godbert how we're sort of on the trail of a thieving duelist, and Gilgamesh chimes in saying he's something of a duelist himself. Interesting.
We head back to Vesper Bay to return the vase, and Lady Durilda is very upset that the vase is altered until she learns that Godbert made the modifications. Then it's okay. Disaster averted, we head outside to ask Briarden about the case, who informs us that he's had several reproductions of the Treaty Blade commissioned, which should be arriving here from different routes. When the thief strikes any one of these transports, we will converge on his location and apprehend the duelist. He also tells us that the mystery thief wears a ridiculous outfit. Interesting.
Without further delay, we make our way out and await our thief. We look around for the thieving duelist but find no sign of him. I wonder why. Oh wow, not even Gilgamesh can find him. In our search though, Nashu happens to find the same gun halberd that propelled Hildebrand to the Red Moon and gives it to him. The group heads outside the walls to search further and chat about weapons. Turns out that the legendary weapon that Gilgamesh is looking for is the same gun halberd that Hildebrand is holding now.
They go back and forth trying to take the weapon from each other until Ellie and Briarden rush in and accuse Gilgamesh of being the thieving duelist. Gilgamesh disagrees, claiming he's earned each weapon he's taken in combat. Unable to sway us, he runs off with a gun halberd, so we chase him out to Griffin Crossing. We battle Gilgamesh and his green chicken Enkidu until we gain the upper hand and Gilgamesh admits defeat. But it was all a trick. He runs off again, falling off the bridge.
With Gilgamesh defeated, we return to Vesper Bay to give the treaty blade to Dorilda, now that the thieving duelist case is solved. Dorilda thanks us and departs, but while we're chatting, Dorilda walks up asking Briarden why he didn't wait for her at the docks. Everyone stares at her in great confusion as she asks us where the treaty blade is. In shock, Briarden runs off and finds a mask on the ground, discarded. Hildebrand realizes, as we all do, that Gilgamesh was not actually the thief we were looking for. The real thief is still at large.
While we're pondering this, a calling card yet again flies past us, and this time hits Briarden in the forehead. The new card reads, 400 years have I slept, 1,000 faces do I wear. What is yours will be mine. I shall come to claim the Lapis Maiden's virtue. Briarden and Hildebrand both rise and accept the thief's new challenge.
We meet up with Ellie, who believes she has found the Lapis Maiden. The girl's name is Arabella, and her wedding engagement is going to be announced at a Costa del Sol banquet, which appears to be the perfect chance for our thief to strike. When we arrive, Hildebrand and Briarden butt heads as always, and Briarden departs shortly after, asking for our assistance with something. Briarden talks with us, making note that the thief not only looked exactly like Lady Dorilda, but also acted exactly like her as well. They must study their targets very closely in disguise. He thinks it may be one of the brass blades, as one of them has not been seen recently.
We find the missing brass blade, who gives us a lead that narrows down our suspects to Morgaunt, the father of the groom, Yalto Nalto, a Lalafell gentleman, and the steward, Lewenhart. We update Hildebrand and go around with him to question the suspects, but come up empty-handed. We decide to investigate some foodstuffs that Lewenhart spoke of, and somehow find Nashu's bombs amongst the food. Hijinks ensue as Briarden almost sets off the bombs as we attempt to prevent the disaster.
Unfortunately, the bombs do go off, destroying the foodstuffs for the banquet. We visit Lewenhart and tell him his foodstuffs are all charred stuffs. On such short notice, it'll be hard to replace the food in time for the banquet, unless we track down the Mandragoras that stole food earlier. Apparently, they stole rare dragon peppers that are a deep purple in color. To right the wrong, we go to the Isle of Umbra and battle the Mandragoras.
When we return to Lewenhart with the stolen foodstuffs, we see that what he called purple dragon peppers are actually blue in color. Lewenhart must have seen the peppers under the tint of red goggles when he was disguised as a brass blade. He's our thief! We chase him down the shoreline where we find Lewenhart on the ground unconscious. As Briarden leans over to remove the mask from our thief, he suddenly wakes up. Seems this is the real Lewenhart, knocked out by our thief. He explains how a brass blade turned on him in Wineport, but he was able to drive a kitchen knife into the thief's right hand before getting knocked out. This may help us identify the thief, but it'll be difficult as he now will be under a new disguise and apparently plotting with the Mandragoras as well.
Out in Wineport, we talk with Miss Arabella about the thief and the engagement necklace given to her by Vons, the groom. To protect this fair maiden, we ask her to wear a disguise to the banquet until we catch the thief. Briarden asks Hildebrand to prepare a distraction during the banquet, and in turn, Hildebrand asks for Miss Arabella's dress. As the banquet begins, Vons comes forward to introduce Miss Arabella. However, it is not Miss Arabella that steps forward, but Hildebrand in her dress. Vons falls to the floor in shock that his maiden has been replaced.
To add to the shock, Hildebrand says he knows the identity of our mystery thief. By his logic, only Arabella's father and steward knows what she looks like. And the reaction from Vons just now is an admission in its own right that Vons knows what Arabella looks like. I'm not too sure about that argument, and the crowd isn't buying it either. Seen as a disturbance to the ceremony, the guards chase off Hildebrand while Vons looks to the crowd and sees Arabella. How does Vons know that this is the real Arabella? She's in disguise. Wait, is he wearing a glove on his right hand?
Hildebrand was right. Vons is the thief and steals Miss Arabella's necklace. He reveals himself and declares that he is the man of 1,000 faces. He then summons the Mandragoras as a distraction and disappears in a puff of smoke. We regroup and discuss the craziness that just occurred. We learn that Miss Arabella's necklace is actually called Azima's Virtue, which explains why the thief stole that and not Miss Arabella. Right on cue, a calling card flies in and reads, "When we next meet, I shall come to claim the victor's spoils."
We talk with Ellie, who has a lead for us on the victor's spoils our thief referenced. There's a tourney held at the Ul'dah Coliseum called the Mithril Cup. They say that a syndicate member will be furnishing the prizes. When we arrive at the Coliseum, we ask the organizer Daramedo to give us the Warden's Grace Ring to protect, but he refuses, stating we'll need to win the tournament to get the ring. We talk with his receptionist Ultros, who signs us and Hildebrand up as contestants. Asking around, we're told that contestants are being mysteriously injured. A gladiatrix by the name of Avila appears to be our prime suspect.
We decide to secretly follow Avila around to see if she incriminates herself. Unknowingly following us is Ultros, who attempts to foil our investigation of Avila. He is very unsuccessful and ends up injuring himself instead of us each time. During our investigation, we are able to learn that Avila seems way too confident in her ability to win. Something doesn't sit right about it. Heading back to the Colosseum, we run into Godbert, and while we chat with him, Gilgamesh talks with the scheming Ultros. Gilgamesh warns Ultros not to underestimate us in whatever plot he's concocting.
As we arrive back at the Colosseum, we help Briarden with the last inquiry before the tournament begins, but we only learn that Ultros is buying gold truffles for some reason. Out of time, we head to the Colosseum to begin the tournament. As we take our positions, Avila and Ultros whisper to each other, clearly scheming an alliance just out of earshot. Avila makes short work of the other combatants. From the sidelines of the fight, Ultros opens up his bag of truffles, only to find that they've been roasted? Avila averts her gaze from us, and Briarden, seeing her pointed glance, cues Dower to open the gate.
From the shadows emerges a creature known as Typhon, and in a single sneeze is able to throw Hildebrand into the air. The way Hildebrand flew through the air reminds the crowd of how Avila defeated her opponents previously. Realizing they've been caught, Ultros begs to continue the fight with Typhon and himself going up against us, the Warriors of Light. Seeing as people paid good gil for this, Dower Meadows says, sure, we'll give them a show.
After defeating Ultros and Typhon, we return to the Colosseum to claim our prize. Before we can take the Warden's grace, though, the Man of 1,000 Faces appears. Hildebrand attempts to protect the ring, but Gilgamesh suddenly appears, demanding a rematch from us. In all the chaos, the Man of 1,000 Faces throws a truffle into the arena, the scent of which causes Typhon to sneeze a whirlwind in our direction. Ultros, Gilgamesh, and the ring are launched into the air, with the ring heading right for the thief. Suddenly, Godbert arrives, knocking Typhon out of the way and grabbing his son Hildebrand. Many spins later, he throws his son up into the air after the ring, but that Manderville's strength is too strong, and Hildebrand is blasted past the ring and through the roof of the Colosseum.
With no resistance, the Man of 1,000 Faces catches the Warden's Grace ring, claiming victory. Though this is not the real ring, our thief dubs this treasure a fake, tossing it down at us. Doesn't matter though, as he has the key to the real one. Dower Meadows calls for the guards, but he's too late as the thief escapes under the cover of an illusionary cherry bomb. While we sort out what exactly just happened, Hildebrand makes his way back to the Colosseum and passes a very remorseful Avila, who expresses her regret in cheating.
Back in the arena, we discuss all the items that have been stolen. Maybe there's a pattern. Turns out the Treaty Blade, Azima's Virtue, and the Ring of Inquiry are all relics of history. Before we can think further, another calling card flies in, but this one is much, much bigger than the last. Written on the card is our final message from the Man of 1,000 Faces. I have enjoyed our little game, but all good things must come to an end. I shall claim the 4 sacred treasures, and justice shall be served. Remembering an old saying, Godbert says, where the 4 treasures of Belladia become one, the wicked shall be judged in the blazing sun. What was thought to be an old fairy tale could now become a potential reality.
After some time, we hear from Ellie again, who has news for us. The Phantom Thief is now a murderer too. Rumor has it 3 people have already died, and they were all influential members of the Old Dawn Society. His calling card was left behind reading, "The weight of 5 corpses will bring the scales of justice to balance." The Sultan's sworn, personal guards of the Sultana, are very worried of the Phantom Thief's threat as they've bolstered their numbers. We decide to head to the Heart of the Sworn to ask about the recent reinforcements.
Halting our entry into the Heart of the Sworn, we find good old Humphrey, the guy who lied about being the Warrior of Light, and lost someone else's sword to Gilgamesh. Wanting to assist the friends of his hero Hildebrand, he lets us speak to Phyllis, the Sworn's best and brightest. Shortly after introductions are made, Briarden joins us and throws demasking dust on us, a formula of his own devising that can supposedly demask our thief when we find him next. We ask Phyllis if she has any insight, but she only knows the old prophecy, which stated, "When darkness falls and hope fades to despair, 4 warriors born of light shall descend, the righteous glare." With the Sultan Sworn busy guarding the vault, she asks if we'll help look into the recent murders for her.
Did someone ask for help? In comes Hildebrand and Nashu, late to the party again. We chat with Phyllis a bit more and then take a bag of demasking dust with us as we head out to investigate where one of the bodies was found. When we arrive, we meet an old woman placing flowers on the ground. She tells us her boy was turned into a zombie. She goes on a bit of a crazy rant about the horrors of Sil'Dih, a sibling nation to Ul'dah, in which a bloody war was waged long ago. A Sil'Dih alchemist found a way to turn the living into the undead and used it to command an army of zombie soldiers. Our murderer must be of Sil'Dih ancestry to know such a recipe.
Now convinced that our phantom thief is a true spectral phantom, Hildebrand suggests that we learn as much as we can from the Thaumaturge Guild. We ask some of the historians about the nation of Belladia and learn that the Belladians flourished in relative peace until twin sons were born to the royal family. When their father died, the two twins fought over who was the rightful heir to the throne. Agreeing to disagree, they split Belladia in two, creating the nations Ul'dah and Sil'Dih.
These nations would come to rival each other to the point of all-out war. Ul'dah was the far superior military, but Sil'Dih employed advanced alchemical knowledge to transform their citizens into a fearsome undead legion. Despite the zombies, Ul'dah emerged victorious, leaving Sil'Dih in ruins. But history is written by the victors. One can only wonder what the Sil'Dih point of view may be. As we discuss the new information with Hildebrand, Ellie comes by with a new lead. There's a traveling merchant by the name of Guguria who apparently knows something important about the murdered victims.
We head to Horizon to talk to the merchant, and after some threats from Lady Dorilda, he's willing to tell us what he knows. Turns out, the thief does have some of Sil'Dih's zombie dust, the traitor's spurn. As for the 5 victims, he must be referring to the Arbiters of Truth. This secret society kept fake news about the Ul'dah-Sil'Dih conflict from becoming public knowledge. He tells us if we want to know more, we should ask Cobb, a member of the Arbiters of Truth, who's setting sail for Limsa right now, for fear he will be turned into a zombie next.
On our way over to Vesper Bay, we run into a zombie over top a fallen guard. It's Hob. We take him out before he can hurt anyone else. Seeing as time is no longer on our side, we decide to report back to Phyllis, and meanwhile, Ellie and Nashu will go back to the Mithril Eye to begin a report on our findings.
We arrive back at the heart of the swarm, but before we can catch up with Phyllis, we hear a shriek from within the vault. As we rush to the scene, we find Ellie on the ground, backed away from a fallen guard. She claims to have approached him to ask a few questions, but was quickly assaulted. She says Nashu saw a shady figure from afar during the encounter and chased after them. Phyllis notes the guard is in uniform, but the face is unfamiliar. A little of the unmasking dust reveals the guard to be none other than the Man of 1,000 Faces. Not needing it anymore, Hildebrand goes to return his bag of unmasking dust, but slips on a mead bottle, and as he falls, the bag explodes over the attacker, revealing another face. Phyllis recognizes this face as the guard she assigned to the vault.
Hildebrand speaks up, this time in a serious tone. He suggests that our thief didn't need to wear a mask. They've been hiding in plain sight this whole time. We look around and notice that Ellie is missing. Before we can speculate further, Humphrey rushes in to report that the Wise Man's Whisper has been taken from the vault. As for Nashu, while investigating, she was knocked out by our masked thief, who then took on the appearance of Nashu herself.
As we regroup the team, Phyllis tells us that she is actually the final member of the Arbiters of Truth. Hildebrand swears to protect her as any gentleman would. It's during this conversation that Nashu rejoins the group. Hildebrand asks us to split up and search for clues, which leads us to finding some cryptic notes and, surprisingly enough, Godbert. Godbert believes our thief may still be hiding among us. Given we only have one bag of dust left, we chat with each of them to figure out who is the imposter, but no one seems unusually suspicious.
Hildebrand states that Ellie would only impersonate those she spent time with, eliminating Godbert. He decides to start by questioning Nashu, as he knows her best. She of course earns a perfect score on what has to be the easiest test we've ever heard. She slips up though when Hildebrand makes an insensitive comment about her wrinkles and explodes in anger at him. After a pause of awkward silence, Briarden tells Ellie that jig is up. With a nod, he signals for us to throw unmasking dust on Nashu, revealing her true identity, Wait, what?
Turns out, our secret imposter is not Ellie, but her sister and partner in crime, Cece. She and her sister are the last living scions of the Sil'Dih aristocracy. Ellie was the informer and Cece the performer. She claims that Ul'dah was actually the ones responsible for turning their population into zombies in order to defeat them. The Arbiters of Truth were not meant to stop fallacies, but to stop the truth from being realized. The zombie dust she holds was stolen by her ancestors from the Ul'dah army 4 centuries ago. The rest of the zombie dust was stolen during the final days of the Ul'dah-Sil'Dih conflict and was hidden in a secret magic vault, only accessible by assembling the 4 sacred relics that once resided in the royal palace of Sil'Dih.
Ellie is on her way now to open the vault and release the mass amount of zombie dust on all of Ul'dah. As a last resort, Cece curses Phyllis and throws her final sachet of zombie dust at her. A true gentleman, Hildebrand dives in front of Phyllis, taking the blow himself. In the blink of an eye, a figure from the shadow races in and knocks out Cece and Godbert. It's Hildebrand's mother, Julian. To add to the confusion, Gilgamesh steps out from down the hall and challenges us to a rematch. As he runs at us, Julian clocks him upside the head too.
To save her son from becoming a zombie, Julian asks us and Gilgamesh to get ingredients to make a phial of holy water. The ingredients aren't easy to get, but with the help of some old friends, we're able to get the needed ingredients from the merchants. With the items in hand, we rush back to Julian, who whips up the holy water and administers it to her son. Meanwhile, Briarden returns with Nashu and tells us that Ellie has indeed been spotted out by the Silde ruins. Running out of time, we leave Hildebrand with his mother and lead the rest of the party out to the ruins. Well, except Gilgamesh, who gets tasked with buying fire crystals to keep Hildebrand warm.
We make our way out to the ruins of Silde to find Phyllis and a few Sultan Sworn overlooking the vault. Ellie is down the road sitting atop a supply of the trader's spurn. We try to talk some sense into her, but it's no use. She suddenly calls forth an army of the undead as zombies surround us. Despite our efforts, more and more zombies keep pouring in, and Ellie mocks us, saying that it was only by Hildebrand's luck that we've gotten this far, and no splash of holy water can starve off the effects of the trader's spurn.
As she commands her undead army to attack once more, she finds the army unresponsive. Instead, they all assume the Manderville pose. From atop the hill dawns a blinding glow. But the figures atop the hill are not 4 warriors of light, they are gentlemen of light. While any normal man would never recover from the trader's spurn, Hildebrand spent quite some time building up a zombie powder immunity while he was originally thought dead. He once again commands the gentle deadmen. Hildebrand calls out to Ellie, asking her to stop this madness, for mass murder hardly suits a lady.
Ellie drops to the ground, defeated. As we take her into custody, Godbert issues his sincerest apologies and plans to address the truth within Ul'dah about the Silde conflict and not hide it away any longer. Gilgamesh butts in once again to challenge us for a long-awaited rematch. He pulls out the one true treaty blade, offering it as a prize to the one who would beat him in single combat. This time, though, he will fight alongside the real Enkidu. Apparently, while buying the fire crystals earlier, he wished for Enkidu to find him and summoned a primal variant of Enkidu. Gilgamesh leaps up to Enkidu's talons and asks that we meet him atop Empedor Keep for our fight.
Even with Enkidu and an arms advantage, Gilgamesh is no match for us. Defeated, he once again begs for forgiveness, asking we spare his life. As we leave the Empedor ruins, we meet up with Hildebrand, who decides to go looking for the blade. When the gang finally does arrive, we tell them of the situation. While we wait for Hildebrand to return, we chat about the Silde relics, and Ellie recites an incantation of untold power that was passed down in her family.
As Ellie finishes telling us the incantation, Hildebrand comes rushing in, treaty blade in hand, and accidentally finishes the final line of the incantation. The blade begins to react and glows bright, accepting the Gentleman of Light and fulfilling the incantation. A beam of light shoots out from the tip of the sword, launching our agent of inquiry skyward. Rumor has it that way up in the clouds he caught wind of another case. It would seem we haven't seen the last of Hildebrand.
Nashu's on the hunt for Hildebrand, and according to her calculations, he must have landed here in Ishgard. She asks us to help her track him down. Our investigation leads us to House 4 Temps, where a foreigner guest, which matches Hildebrand's description, is currently meeting with Lord Edmund. But the foreigner is none other than Godbert, Hildebrand's father. Before we can catch up, an Inquisitor calls out to Godbert, asking him to surrender for his brazen heresy.
The Inquisitor realizes that he has the wrong guy, though, and introduces himself as Seer. He has been charged with investigating reports of a rather suspicious, possibly heretical individual. The man in question is rather muscular, wearing dark garments and conducting himself in a gentlemanly fashion. Seeing as this man is clearly looking for Hildebrand, we strike an agreement with him that we'll look for Hildebrand together. Seer tells us that our target was last seen at Falcon's Nest, so we head off at once.
Our search leads us to the Dusk Vigil, where we spot a gentleman, but it's one of Hildebrand's gentle dead men. Seer, of course, has a heart attack at the sight of a zombie. The gentle dead man explains how he's heard rumors of an abandoned fortress held by zombies out here, and he's the acting emissary on behalf of the gentle dead men of Ul'dah. All is not lost, though. His fate and Aether are inextricably entwined with their overlord Hildebrand, so much so that he can feel it calling to him now. Zombie radar!
We follow the gentle dead man and find Hildebrand buried headfirst in the snow and surrounded by yetis. He's pretty stuck, so Godbert steps up to pull his son free. He grabs hold of Hildebrand, lifting him straight into the air, high above Korthus. On the way down, Godbert meteor drives him straight into the same spot, burying him even deeper than before. Giving it one more go, Godbert lifts out Hildebrand from the snow, but along with him comes a small mage with a big hat.
Seer looks to the mammoth and asks where it came from. Hildebrand says he found it beneath the snow when he fell back in. Godbert smacks it with his goldsmithing hammer, activating the mage. G. It questions where it is and who it is. Hildebrand concludes that while Godbert brought him back to life, he did so at the cost of his memory. Understanding what it is to lose one's memory, Hildebrand swears to help him remember. He decides to name the mammoth Gigi from the startup sound it made, and we all head back to Ishgard with our new friend. As we leave though, we can't help but feel like we're being watched, a feeling all too familiar.
After some time back in Ishgard, Seer reaches out to us asking for our help with investigating Gigi for heresy. We find Hildebrand and Nashi over by the gazebo outside House Four Temps, teaching Gigi the ways of the Manderville. Seer wastes no time getting to business and commands Hildebrand to relinquish Gigi over to be tested for heresy. But Hildebrand brushes off the command, taking it as a joke. Count Edmund de Four Temps joins us as Seer tries to explain to him how he's only trying to prevent heresy. Lord Edmund suggests that, until Gigi recovers its memory, Hildebrand should adopt Gigi into House Manderville. Surely the Inquisitors would think twice about claiming heresy on a House member, especially one allied with House Four Temps. And with that, Hildebrand becomes a father. Papa Hildy.
With the Inquisitors off our back, we're free to show Gigi all of Ishgard. Hopefully something will spark his memory. Nothing seems to work though until Hildebrand knocks over an antique vase while in the markets. While we're all in panic, Gigi casts a spell on the vase, restoring it to its original condition. A marvel in front of our very eyes, though Gigi doesn't even know how he did it. Gigi's still saddened though, believing that everyone thinks of him as a mammoth. Hildebrand attempts to reassure him, but Gigi doesn't accept Hildebrand's words, and storms off saying Hildebrand and Nashu are not his parents.
We ask around after Gigi and find our lost boy out in Velkin's Nest, snow stuck to his head, lying on the ground. Just past him are Godbert and Julian, Gigi's grandparents, having a snowball fight. As Gigi gets back up, he asks his grandpapa Godbert to make him a real boy. Accepting the task, Godbert transforms into his work attire and transforms Gigi into a muscular Rogadin.
Gigi and Hildebrand run to embrace each other, but while Hildebrand goes in for the hug, Gigi hits him with the clothesline. Shortly after, Gigi's magic restores him back to his original form, much like the vase from earlier. Godbert is glad to hear he has a grandson, but Julian isn't so excited. In fact, she goes into a primal rage over the idea of a mammoth being the reason she becomes a grandmother already. While the Mandervilles make their grand exit, Seer cowers in fear. As we walk our troubled friend back to Ishgard, I can't help but feel like we're still being watched.
After our return to Ishgard, Seer needs our assistance again. Rumor has it that the esteemed knights of the Heavens Ward that we definitely killed have been seen running around Ishgard. These supposed knights are tricking hapless maidens into attending private parties for a small fee to hang out with them. With the gang, and Hildebrand's mother, assembled, we go around questioning maidens involved in the incident. Our investigation doesn't lead to any new clues though until Hildebrand decides to question an older woman. Oddly enough, she was also deceived by the fake knights and learned that they were going to seek shelter in Idleshire. With a new lead, we're off, for justice waits for no gentleman.
We safely arrive in Idleshire and begin questioning the local residents who have all seen the Grand Sirs and tell us exactly where we can find them. We inform Hildebrand, who gathers everyone together as we approach the building. It would appear no one is home though, so we decide to wait. While waiting, Hildebrand's old friend Slowfix stops by. Since Gigi is fond of Idleshire, Hildebrand asks Slowfix if there's any gazebos he and his makeshift family could call home. Slowfix suggests that he just take the building we're standing in front of. It's free real estate.
We all keep a lookout for the Grand Sirs while Gigi paints their strange crest on their new home. He finishes the crest, but the Grand Sirs have not arrived. Hildebrand is tired and would like to take a break, but Nashu points out that some very shady and suspicious people are standing close by and staring at us. They're obviously the Grand Sirs we're looking for. Quick, after them!
We give chase and pass a tired Gigi on the way. We corner the Grand Sirs outside Idleshire, and Hildebrand demands they come forth and answer for their misdeeds. In a very dramatic fashion, the Dragoon declares he is Orland and the White Mage is Gonspart. They take their battle stances, ready to fight us. Orland begins to execute a Dragon Song dive, soaring high into the air. High in the sky and in the mind, apparently. He soars too high and falls back down to earth, landing head first in the ground. Presumed dead, Hildebrand and Nashu offer their condolences and lay flowers at the grave.
Gonspart finally begins resing Orland with a very odd incantation. It somehow works though, as Orlan's legs begin to flail and he pops out of the hole. Suddenly, a voice behind us demands that we stop if we care what happens to the mammoth. We turn around to see Gigi in a cage and an old woman black mage standing before us. Ah, she's the old woman who pointed us towards Idleshire in the first place and told us what building to find them in. She transforms into her knightly attire, giving a similar dramatic introduction. Her name is Doris.
She declares that we have fallen for their trap. All of the parties and petty schemes were all in preparation for this moment. They wanted to lure us out here and kidnap Gigi so that they could restore their youth. She throws a smoke bomb at us to make their escape. As the smoke clears, we see the trio hobbling away just in front of us, very slowly. Gigi calls out for his papa, who in turn promises that he will find him.
We chase after them, and while hiding behind a bush, we spot them taking a break already. A series of events has us following Orlan, who separate from the group, and giving him a massage while stripping him of his armor. Hildebrand takes the armor and disguises himself as Orlan. In typical Hildebrand luck, Doris is as blind as a bat. Hildebrand talks his way through letting Gigi out of the cage and allowing Gigi to walk with him into the wilderness for no particular reason.
Unfortunately, he bumps into the real Orland. As Gigi and Hildebrand make a run for it, Doris realizes her mistake. She calls out to Vivi, stopping Gigi in his tracks. She claims our Gigi is really Vivi, a creation of the great Sharlayan archmagus Quan. This accusation sparks Gigi's memory, and he confirms this to be true. Vivi was a mammoth created by Quan to turn back the hands of time and bring everlasting youth to his creator. Vivi was seen as flawed though, as he failed to do so, and Quan has since died of old age.
To convince Gigi to join them, Doris tells him that he can bring Quan back to life. Hildebrand tries to change Gigi's mind, but Gigi misses his grandpapa Quan and wants to try to revive him. A sad silence fills the space as we watch the Grandsires and Gigi walk away. Hildebrand initially accepts Gigi's choice, but after some consideration, he can't accept the unrighteous path that his son walks. We decide to head with Cyr to Ishgard to research what we can about the origins of Gigi.
Back in Ishgard, Cyr has found some forbidden information on temporal magics that may prove useful. Cyr's theory from these studies is that if time were reverted on an object, that the original object would not be restored, but instead, a copy of it is restored at a previous point in time. Before we can leave, a colleague of Cyr's comes in and accuses him of heresy for taking a book from the restricted section. Cyr stands his ground against the accusations, but will likely get in big trouble for this infraction.
In Idleshire, we find Nashu and Julian, but no Hildebrand. They say he caught wind of the Grandsire's path and found out that they were traveling through the Javanian Forelands. I suppose we should track them down while Cyr snoops around Quan's old abode for more information on Gigi's past. We ask the locals if they've seen any Dragon Knight cosplayers and are told that the 3 old geezers and a mammoth were headed for Annex Shrine to, quote, kill the big one. As we chase after the Grandsires, we find Hildebrand buried in the ground and yank him free.
Cyr joins us with Godbert in tow. Right on cue, Hildebrand awakes from his nap and tells us he was merely hiding from the newly youthful Grandsires. Hildebrand tells us that Gigi's eyes are a little more pointy than he remembered. Cyr warns us that according to Quan's notes, that's a sign he's used too much magic and is almost out of Aether. The Grandsires are now headed to Zenith in the Churning Mist to kill Hraesvelgar.
In an epic fashion, we find our targets, except this time the Grandsires are a lot younger looking. Gigi has restored their youth, and right on cue, our mammoth reveals himself, pointy eyes and all. Our opposition to their plan forces them to combine in strength and all-out assault only Hildebrand in a swirling vortex. Hildebrand somehow endures a barrage of attacks, ending in a limit break. When the wind settles, Hildebrand is left on the floor, clothes tattered. Hildebrand is able to get back up and again asks Gigi to return home with him, but Gigi refuses, stating that he needs the worm's eyes to bring back Quan.
Based on Quan's notes, Gigi didn't restore things back to the way they used to be, but rather he restores them to the way Gigi believes is right. Cyr tries to talk him down, explaining how Quan's soul cannot be restored, but Gigi won't listen. The Grandsires have had enough of this, so they spring the trap initially set for Hraesvelgar. 2 towers come crashing down in our direction. However, the Manderville Mammoth isn't ready to say goodbye to his friends and family. With a stunning display of rewind magic, Gigi returns everything around him back to the way that they should be.
Sadly, it seems Gigi has run out of Aether with that last big rewind. Hildebrand's parents tell him what a good father figure he was to Gigi and that they're proud of the man he has become. Hildebrand, as usual, unknowingly offends his mother, and one pan swing later he's gone, this time smelling a case off to the far east. As for the cleanup, Godbert believes Gigi will live once more once his core absorbs enough ambient aether and offers to bring the Grand Sirs back to Idyllshire to answer for their crimes. Since Seer can't go back to Ishgard after getting in trouble with the Inquisition, he decides to look after the Manderville gazebo in Idyllshire and become an investigator.
Over in Kugane, we once again find Nashu and team up with her to help find Hildebrand. Nashu points out that Hildebrand has a knack for finding trouble wherever it is, so all we need to do is find the biggest case in town and he's sure to show up eventually. We learn of some break-ins around town and head over to talk with Akebono, who recently had a run-in with a thief. On the other end of the Rakuza district, we find Akebono talking with a young man about the case. As he leaves, he runs into Nashu and introduces himself as Shigure, a samurai of the Far East, here to bring justice to the criminal at large.
As Shigure heads out in a hurry, we turn our attention back to the informant. Akebono tells us how he was robbed recently and a thief left behind a note saying, "You have been robbed by the Kugane Wolf Burglar." Asking around, we aren't able to find any new leads until we run into Shigure again, who tells us of an auction that may be tempting to the thief. We ask to join Shigure and he agrees.
We arrive at the auction, and the bidding begins shortly after. This auction is very shady though, as the first item up for bid is a captured Kakarn. Up next is the Eorzean Gentleman, a statue depicting a living, breathing man frozen in time. Yet this statue is obviously the living and breathing Hildebrand. The bidding for Hildebrand begins, going all the way up to 800,000 Kaban. Suddenly, a smoke bomb goes off, and with it, the statue, Hildebrand, disappears. All that's left is the calling card of the Kugane Wolf Burglar. Akebono caught a glimpse of the thief heading for the shore pier, so we team up with Shigure to chase him. On the pier, we learn from a captain that he's headed towards the Ruby Price.
We question the locals, which leads us over to the Isle of Becca, where Nashu spots someone with big ears and a long fluffy tail. We confront the wolf only to find out he was actually just one of Hildebrand's gentle dead men, dressed up like the Lupin. Of course, it's the same emissary we met in Korthus, now here looking for more dead friends. This gentle dead man was about to head back to Eorzea when he felt the etheric tug of Master Zombie Brand nearby. Oh, and as for the wolf costume, a tradesman sold it to him so that he could fit in better and not look so, dead.
As we head in the direction of the gentle dead man's zombie radar, we come across the wolf burglar carrying Hildebrand on his back. The wolf makes a run for it, and Nashi responds with her serving of Nashu's Delight. A kebab of bombs roll down the hill, and Hildebrand catches the bombs and attempts to throw them away. His throw, though, only seems to launch away the skewer, leaving the bombs at their feet. A dazzling display of color and gunpowder launches Hildebrand to one end of the ravine, and the wolf to the other end. With only a split second to decide between saving Hildebrand or catching the thief, we don't even hesitate to go for the thief.
As we attempt to corner the wolf burglar, he decides to drop to his demise rather than be captured. But we're dealing with no mere amateur, for, as he falls, a falcon swoops in to catch the thief. He taunts us, saying that he has no reason to stay around any longer, now realizing the statue was actually a man. And with that, he flies off. A quickened introduction gets Shigure and Hildebrand acquainted, just in time for Hildebrand to race off, sensing someone in need nearby.
Over on the shoreline, we find Hildebrand with a wayward Kakurn. He tells us he sniffed out a new case. The Kakurn claims his business partner was kidnapped while they were unloading goods at the Kugane docks. We definitely know of the merchant who sold his Kakurn friend. We go to confront the broker responsible, and Shigure attempts to arrest him, but fails, having no such authority.
But wait, right on cue, a member of the Sekisugumi approaches the stall, repeating the arrest, but this time finding greater success. After they depart, Shigure tells us that he journeyed to Kugane in hopes of joining the Sekisugumi, but was deemed unworthy. Bringing the wolf burglar to justice is his last-ditch effort to prove his worth. Such compassion for the case relights the fire in Hildebrand's heart as he swears to help him succeed in catching the thief.
As we attempt to catch up with Hildebrand in the Rakuza district, we hear him talking with Akebono again, who is recounting how the wolf burglar attempted to steal his most prized sword, the Saburo Sukahiro. But this time, Akebono had a new guard ready, a samurai by the name of Yojimbo. Seeing this as our only good lead to finding the wolf burglar, we follow Akebono to nag him about assisting the guard. He's made his way to a private showing down the street, but his bodyguard won't let us in. Apparently, we aren't pretty enough to be professional entertainers.
Hildebrand has a plan though, and typical hijinks ensue as Shigure is shaved bald and Nashu is given a new kimono to wear. With the new outfit, the bodyguard allows only Nashu to enter. Sneaking in behind her, though, is another entertainer, and of course, it's Hildebrand wearing full face paint and a kimono. Akebono tries to shoo him away, but Hildebrand won't listen and dances in an attempt to change his mind. We spot the wolf burglar entering the building and race past the guard to join the chaos, but not before the thief can get his paws on the Saburo Sukehiro sword.
Seeing our cover is blown, Hildebrand and Nashu quick change back into their normal attire. For a moment, Yojimbo stares at us and Hildebrand with a look of realization. In this awkward delay, the wolf burglar gets out one of his smoke bombs and detonates it as everyone jumps after him. As the smoke settles, Hildebrand and company are left in a dog pile as the thief gets away out the window. All we managed to grab was a dagger from the thief, not the prize sword.
Outside the venue, Shigiri believes that the thief has fled to Yangxia based on the Doman craftsmanship of the dagger he grabbed. Yojimbo joins us with his doggo friend Daigoro, who helps us sniff out the thief. A series of clues leads us into Doma, and at the far end of town we find the wolf burglar, still carrying the prize sword. Yojimbo unleashes Daigoro after him, but the thief tosses a gold Koban coin far in the distance, drawing the attention of the dog far, far away. I guess the dog's weakness is money.
As we approach the wolf burglar, he cries out for his bird to help him escape, but this time, Hildebrand dotes the bird, causing it to fall to the ground in shock. The opportunity allows Shigure to dash for the thief and arrest him, with Hildebrand reclaiming the sword. Yojimbo asks for the sword so that he might confirm it's not a fake. He then conveniently remembers he has urgent business in Kugane and takes his leave with the sword, saying he'll deliver it to its rightful owner.
With the sword taken care of, we decide to bring the wolf burglar to Kugane and hand him over to the Sekisugumi. We're met with praise from the authorities for catching such an elusive villain. Suddenly, Akebono comes running in asking for his blade back. He is furious at us for giving the sword to Yojimbo after he fired him, and then storms off. The samurai asks Shigiri if he'd like to be instituted as a member of the Sekisugumi, and without hesitation, Shigiri accepts. His assignment as a Sekisugumi is to hunt down the sword Yojimbo stole and return it to Akebono. Hildebrand agrees to help and runs off in search of our latest thief.
We decide to continue asking around town for information on Yojimbo's whereabouts, but people are very upset that the wolf burglar was arrested, who was like a Robin Hood to the people of Kugane. Nashu suggests that perhaps we should ask the wolf burglar himself for more information, if he really was helping people. Shigure leads us over to the cell where they're keeping the wolf burglar. The Lupin is tight-lipped though and won't tell us much unless we temporarily release him to help with the investigation. Shigure considers the request, but Hildebrand and Nashu hatch a new idea instead. They propose Shigure try out that hair tonic they bought earlier.
A bit confused, Shigure agrees, dumping the whole bottle on his bald head. Just as those before him, the shine of the tonic works, blinding the guard that accompanied us into the room. In the cover of the light, Hildebrand swaps out the wolf burglar for the gentle dead man. As Shigure's hair grows in and the light fades, the guard goes over to inspect the cell. Seeing nothing out of the ordinary, Shigure tells him that the flash was a small explosive that unexpectedly went off.
As per our arrangement, the wolf burglar leads us beneath the city into the sewers of Kugane to meet his associates. They haven't heard of Yojimbo, but theorize that if he didn't intend to sell the sword, then he must be keeping it, and such a sword may not be their first target. If that's the case, then perhaps Yojimbo would steal again. Maybe Suzano's sword? The Ame no Murakumo? It's locked up now in the Kojin of the Red's treasure vault. Seems like our only lead once again takes us to the Ruby Sea. Shigure says he'll catch up with us once he changes out of his conspicuous Sekisugumi attire.
Out in the Ruby Sea, we all gather at the docks before heading to the Kojin of the Red's domain. Shigure arrives looking rather different. We discuss the difficulty of getting over to the Isle of Zeki, and Hildebrand breaks the conversation by asking the wolf why he wants the sword if it's so difficult to sell. The wolf burglar tells us of a samurai that took him in during the Garlean occupation of Doma. One day, Akebono came by asking to buy the samurai's blade, but his request was refused. In the coming days, Akebono used his influence to put the samurai under such high debt that the only way out was to temporarily relinquish his blade until the funds could be acquired. The samurai grew old though, and he died before the blade and his honor could return to him.
The wolf burglar learned the ways of the shinobi in hopes of reacquiring the blade and carrying it with honor once more. All of the hits on other valuables was only to scare Akebono into hiring more security, and in doing so, unknowingly reveal the location of the blade. Well, if we want this sword back, we need to catch Yojimbo. We ask around and learn that Daigoro was seen on the beach not long ago. We head down and sure enough, the doggo is wandering around. Daigoro runs over immediately when the wolf burglar leaves a gold Kaban coin on the ground. With the dog's attention, we ask him to bring us to his master, which surprisingly works as we follow the dog down the shoreline.
Now, face to face again with Yojimbo, Hildebrand asks him to cease his shenanigans and relinquish the Saburo Sugihiro sword at once. He of course refuses, and even claims that soon Susanna's sword will be his too. Hildebrand steps up to challenge Yojimbo and rather unexpectedly calls Daigoro over to him. Hildebrand tells Yojimbo that he will continue to rub Daigoro's belly, making him jealous until the sword is returned. To everyone's surprise, Yojimbo actually gives in, tossing the sword to Hildebrand. But as Hildebrand goes to catch the blade, he steps on Daigoro's tail. A very angry doggo, Daigoro chases Hildebrand around and then buries him in the ground. But now the wolf burglar has the sword. It's at this moment that the Sekisugumi arrive at the beach. With Yojimbo and the wolf burglar nowhere to be found, they arrest Shigiri for assisting the escape of a criminal and leave for Kugane.
The inspector believes that the only way out of this whole mess is to prove that Akebono is corrupt. While searching for information on Akebono, though, Hildebrand received a letter. The missive reads, something of light, you who seeks the strongest of swords, the Saburo Sukihiro, know that I have laid claim to this most priceless treasure. If you would make it yours, meet me upon Kugane Ohashi for a duel to end all duels. Sincerely, you know who.
Hildebrand believes that the letter refers to him, the gentleman of light. But we all know these duels are for us, the warriors of light. Without talking it over, Hildebrand rushes off to the duel. Clearly out of his league, we rush after Hildebrand to reason with him and take our rightful spot in this duel. Out on the Kugane Ohashi, we find the duelist who challenged us. Of course, it's none other than Yojimbo. As we begin the humbling of a lifetime, Yojimbo says he's had enough and transforms himself, or rather reveals himself, to be none other than Gilgamesh.
With the duel ending in our favor, Gilgamesh once again begs us for mercy. We take the lousy oaf back to Hildebrand so he can come clean for masquerading around as Yojimbo this whole time. Gilgamesh tells us the story of how he went east to find the strength to face us again. However, the journey was very long, and in his desperate hunger, he ended up eating poor Enkidu, his painted chicken. But a new ally would take Enkidu's place in that of a stray dog, Daigoro, and together they would work as guards for Akebono. Gilgamesh once again offers his full support to our cause, that he may make up for his actions, and Hildebrand welcomes him aboard the case.
We head back to update Nashu, but she beats us to the punch as she informs us that Shigiri is to be sentenced to death. Hildebrand suggests that there are many roads to a just end, but this time, we ought to just take a shortcut to save our friend. We rush over to the Sekisugumi base and watch from afar as a samurai pulls his blade behind Shigiri, and then tosses it into the air, for today, the executioner is Hildebrand. He leads the Sekisugumi on a chase around the barracks, eventually climbing a tree out of reach. He screams for Shigiri to make a break for it, but Shigiri won't listen.
But then a voice cries out, claiming Shigiri's honor is still his own. The wolf burglar stands atop the entrance to the barracks, ready to turn himself and the sword in. The Sekisugumi don't hesitate to take the wolf burglar into custody. After all the craziness, the Sekisugumi dismissed the death sentence and assigned Shigiri a new case as punishment. He's to look into the odd dealings Akebono has been up to. Or perhaps not. Master Kamode of the Sekisugumi comes out to reassure us that nothing is amiss with Akebono and dismisses the assignment. But as he turns away, a red hue fills his eyes.
We leave the Sekisugumi barracks to regroup with everyone. Shigiri noticed that Akebono visited the jail asking when his safe contents would be returned. When we first took on the case, the wolf burglar had just stolen an unmarked satchel filled with white powder from Akebono. Was it medicine, or something else? The wolf burglar was able to tell Shigiri that the satchel is in the waterways with his associates. We only need to give the proper password. As above, so below.
We make our way down below the city to the Lupin's associates. After giving the password, Koju hands us the satchel, but we still have yet to identify the contents. We suggest asking a Hainish alchemist for their expertise and decide to bring the satchel to the Thavnarian consulate. But as we reach the gate, the guards tell us we cannot gain entry without an appointment. In some manner of Hildebrand luck, Godbert arrives at the gate with a representative. The rep just so happens to deal with alchemical goods in Radzahan. He's more than happy to assist a Monderville, whose family has obviously had great dealings with the Sajatra concern.
He takes us to a nearby park and informs us that this powder is forbidden from the market as it could be used to create a dew prism. Such consumption causes the victim to become enthralled into taking commands, and the only symptom is a pulsing change in eye color. With no time to waste, we rush over to Akebono's abode and demand he come forth and answer for his dastardly deeds. As we stand awkwardly outside the quiet house, Shigiri spots the wolf burglar off to the side. He broke free to help us enact justice, and it just so happens that the Lupin knows that Akebono is off to the Isle of Beko to meet with a silent partner of his.
We lay in wait for Akebono to arrive and stay hidden as he shows up, baiting out his guest. But nobody could have predicted that Godbert and the Thavnarian representative would be the ones doing the deal. As they talk aloud, we overhear them discussing the use of Duprism to control all of Kugane. But Godbert only speaks when addressed, much like he's under the influence of Duprism himself. Unable to stay quiet as his father is manipulated, Hildebrand rushes out to convince his father to resist the drug. But it's no use. The representative calls forth the Hammer to attack us. In a flurry of hammer swings, Godbert buries Shigure, Gilgamesh, and the wolf burglar in the ground. Akebono makes a mistake of telling Godbert to attack everyone, causing Godbert to turn on the two dirty dealers and bury them as well.
Seeing an opportunity to end this, Hildebrand rushes his father. It's time for the Manderville signature move, Meteor Drive. As Godbert descends from the heavens, he remembers the good old times he and his son have had over their adventures. The memories bring him back to himself, and reactively, he loops around Hildebrand to set up a reverse meteor drive. With Hildebrand now buried as well, Godbert looks around very confused as to what has occurred.
Akebono and the Thavnarian representative are arrested. The wolf burglar takes back the Saburo Sekihiro sword and gives it to Hildebrand, asking him to place it at his father's grave. The Lupin tells Shigure he can take him back to his jail now so he can wait out his sentence. But surprisingly, Shigure states that he'll have to tell his superiors that he hasn't seen hide nor hair of the wolf burglar. With a simple thanks, the wolf burglar takes the sword and leaves.
As Gilgamesh mourns the loss of his painted chicken, Enkidu walks up beside him. In his cry of confusion, the Thavnarian representative throws a pill into Gilgamesh's mouth. Suddenly, his eyes glow red as the representative demands him to spirit them away from this place. Gilgamesh agrees to send them beyond the rift that lies between, to a wondrous world yet unseen. As Hildebrand rushes to his friend's aid, a dark puddle envelops all of them. Nashu dives in after them just as the dark portal closes.
With our friends lost to the interdimensional rift, we have nothing else to do but take Akebono back to Kugane. After the deceiving merchant is behind bars, Shigure informs us that after hearing of the incident, the merchants of Radz at Han have agreed to a better spread of Hainish medicines across the merchants of Kugane, allowing for a cheaper and more free market. For now, Shigure has to get back to work, and we've got new adventures to get to. We'll leave the big city under the protection of its vigilante, a modern-day Robin Hood.
Class dismissed.
Be sure to thumbs up and hit the subscribe button down below. Click the bell to be notified of future videos.